I'm Kate Hahn, senior writer with TV Insider, talking to the cast of The Hot Zone Anthrax, Season 2 of National Geographic's anthology drama series based on true events.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for speaking to us at TV Insider about The Hot Zone Season 2. Hard as it is to believe, because we've loved you in so many roles, this is your first leading role on a television show. Why was it so important for you to play this role? What called out to you about this character?
A few different things. Number one, I really enjoyed the fact that the investigation took a lot of different twists and turns, and it wasn't wrapped up in a nice little bow at the end. This worked a little bit more like a life where it's not always so black and white, and there are mistakes that can be made, and the mistakes can have real consequences. And they did for real people. And I think it meant a lot to me that we're talking about real people who died and lives that were affected, and a culture whose identity was starting to be questioned, because up until that point, we'd never had an attack on American soil like this. There were the towers, and then in quick succession, these attacks. And so I remember where I was during those times. I remember what I was feeling, and the fact that they chose a face that looked like mine to represent the FBI as the lead investigator in this investigation, and that meant so much to our country, was meaningful.
Well, tell me more about the character you play, FBI agent Matthew Riker, who's an amalgamation of a lot of the agents who were working on the anthrax case at the time. What drives him, and what are his big strengths when it comes to being the investigator?
Yeah, I think what drives him are a number of things. Like, I think one, he's part of an organization made up of very driven individuals. These are not run-of-the-mill law enforcement people. The FBI, the people who make up the FBI, are very, very smart, very well educated, very well trained, ambitious people. And so he's thrown into that group. But he's also coming in from a non-traditional route, because he's a scientist. He's not a fraternity boy. He came in as an outsider already, and then on top of that, when you consider that he's a minority in an overwhelmingly white organization, the combination of those things, I think gives him something to prove. And if you ask what is the quality that it was most important to him solving this crime, it's his persistence. He does things throughout this investigation that I consider myself a hard worker that I would never do, and 99% of us would not. Like, the length to which he went to try and find answers was extraordinary and exceptional.
Your character, without spoiling too much, tell us how Dr. Bruce Ivans' life changes over the course of this season.
Well, when we meet Bruce Ivans, who is the lead anthrax researcher for these microbiologists, for the U.S. Army, really for the United States Defense Department, he was sort of central to the investigation, and that he was the guy who, with his team, tested all the anthrax samples and tried to evaluate, where this, where this material had come from. And Bruce became obsessed with this investigation, and really saw himself as central and centrally important to it. And as the series progresses, his obsession grows, and things about Bruce are, it's revealed Bruce has some severe struggles with mental illness, and it's safe to say his obsession with this investigation ends up derailing his life. And without giving away too much, there are lots of different surprises and things that we discover about a number of characters in this piece. But Bruce, his world starts to completely fall apart.
It's a really interesting role for you, I imagine, taking on Tom Brokaw, one of the greatest newscasters of all time. Can you talk about what it's like to transform into him, and what kind of research you did?
Well, when I was first offered the part, I said to my agent that this could be a disaster. First of all, I'm a huge fan of Tom Brokaw. I have my entire life. I saw him when I was a kid, when he was a news broadcaster in Southern California. I've known him since I was a teenager. So he convinced me that I probably could pull it off, and I took it. And I was not reluctant, but I was a little bit terrified, put it that way. So I spent 2 months really getting into Tom Brokaw. I mean, I listened to all of his books. I watched news broadcasts. I read his books. I watched speeches, and just, yeah, I did total immersion.
Now, talk about Tom Brokaw's involvement in these anthrax attacks. How much was he at risk? How much did he report on the story? Talk about how close he got.
He was a target, as were many of the other news anchors at the time. And he was right in the thick of it, for sure. Tom Brokaw is a very, very level-headed guy, and he takes things in stride. And he didn't get too upset about the whole situation. But there is one scene with Danieldaekim when I was able to, come out and actually be emotional about what was happening because my assistant was really sick, and they didn't seem to be doing anything about it. I think he was right in the middle of it.
Be sure to check out The Hot Zone Anthrax. The 3-night event premieres Sunday, November 28th on National Geographic. And for more TV Insider interviews, hit subscribe.